Good morning, loves. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Happy Sunday if it's still Sunday where you are, and if it's still Sunday when you're watching this. I am so happy to be back here with you guys today talking about forgiveness, which is honestly one of my favorite topics to talk about, and you'll understand why as we dive into it today. But first off, I want to apologize for not being here the past couple of weeks. You may have noticed that I have not been very active on social media over the past couple of weeks. And that was intentional, although it wasn't planned. I had taken a few weeks off to be on vacation to spend time with the family and had overcommitted myself and mistakenly thought that I would be able to easily schedule all of this into my vacation and make it work, and it was no big deal. And quickly realized while I was on vacation that it was giving me a huge amount of anxiety and stress, just trying to figure out how to get all of the posts into social media, how to promote everything, get my outlines written out, schedule in time for these talks, which meant, scheduling our family calendar and vacation time around that, and how that cuts into our day. And it was just giving me this overwhelm. It was giving me this huge sense of anxiety. And I quickly realized that the anxiety was coming from the fact that my priorities were not aligned with my actions, that I was trying to do something that I should not be doing. And not that I shouldn't be doing these talks or spending time with you guys, but that I was taking time which was essentially for vacation, which I consider it to be very sacred time. Any family time I consider to be very sacred time. And I was trying to wedge something else into it, and it was giving me this huge sense of anxiety. So that's where I've been the past couple of weeks. I've been on vacation with the family, and when I realized that I had all of that anxiety, because I was trying to divide myself and spread myself way too thin and be in too many places at once, it was a reality check for me that I needed to unplug and really spend time with my family, which was what that vacation time was for. So that's where I've been, and I'm sorry that I haven't been here, but we're back today, and today we are talking about forgiveness. We're talking about chapter 7 of Awakening the Lightwarriorwithin, and I love this chapter. I love everything that has to do with forgiveness, just because it is so liberating. It is transformational, and once you start to practice forgiveness, you'll realize the power that it has, and how it can truly change your life and change your relationships. But before we do that, I want to do like we always do when we get together. I want us to take a minute to ground and center ourselves and pray. Not a religious prayer. Today we're going to use the Ho'oponopono prayer, which I hope I pronounced that correctly, which is incredibly simple. It is 4 lines, and the 4 lines go like this: I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you're basically saying that to yourself. That is the only person you are saying that to right now. So we're going to do it 3 times. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes wherever you are, if you're in a situation or an environment where you can close your eyes. If you're driving or cooking or chopping vegetables, please keep your eyes open and your focus where it needs to be. But if you are somewhere where you can close your eyes and you can take a moment just to ground and center yourself and turn inwards to still your thoughts and slow your breathing, do so. Take those few seconds for yourself, because I promise you they will re-energize you and revitalize you. Just tapping into ourselves, coming home to ourselves, just for those few seconds. So if you can, take a minute to close your eyes. Breathe in deeply through your nose, exhaling through your nose. Your breathing should be comfortable. It should feel effortless. And we're going to recite this 3 times. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And just take another moment to breathe in deeply, exhaling through your nose, and slowly come back to me, because we're going to talk. We're going to talk about forgiveness. All right, so let's talk about why forgiveness is so important. In the reading that I've done and the research that I've done in looking at different spiritual practices, different religions, what I've seen is that forgiveness is the common thread amongst all of them. My beard is doing a weird thing today. I don't know what's going on. But it is that common thread that ties all of these spiritual practices, all of these religions together, because it is the foundation for everything we are here to do. When we forgive, we liberate ourselves. There's a quote I share in the book. In any moment that we choose not to carry the weight of our past into the present, we are reborn. What does that mean? I don't mean reborn from a religious perspective. I mean that in that moment, we get to renew ourselves. We become alive again. We get to relive that moment in the present without these illusions, without these tinted glasses that our past is causing us to look at our present life and our future with. Because the past, everything that we have chosen not to forgive, those resentments, those grievances that we carry, they change the way we look at the world. They change the way we look at the future, at our present moments. They change the way we look at our relationships. They change our perspective. So any moment in which we choose not to carry our past into the present, we are reborn. We are given a new set of eyes to look at the world through. And that's why I consider forgiveness to be so important, because there are so many grievances that we carry. We have so much resistance to forgiveness. And let's talk about why we have resistance to forgiveness. You might be thinking about people in your life right now. They can be family members or friends or colleagues or just acquaintances in general. People that you perhaps don't even know that you're carrying grievances towards, people that you've seen on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, wherever it is, that have upset you in some way, and you're carrying these grievances towards these people. And we become very, very resistant to forgiving and to letting go of those grievances. And there's a few different reasons why. One, like we talked about in earlier light talks, is that we identify through our stories, right? We become the victims, we become the martyrs. The grievances that we carry, the anger, the resentment, the hatred, all of that, the hurt. Often a lot of our grievances are because of hurt, because of people who have hurt us. They become very much part of that story. They become intertwined with it. And they become part of that baggage, that narrative that we're carrying with us. And the idea of releasing that becomes very uncomfortable. It becomes very scary because we've become so attached to it. And without our story, then who am I? Without these grievances, without all of this resentment that I'm carrying, if I'm not the victim, if I'm not the martyr, then who am I? So that's one of the reasons why we don't forgive, or that we have so much resistance towards forgiveness. The second reason is a lack of boundaries. And to be honest, I can't stress this enough. When it comes to forgiveness, you have to have clear boundaries. You have to be able to erect your boundaries, and you have to be able to hold firm on them. Forgiveness without boundaries is like trying to drink coffee without a mug. You're going to make a mess. It's going to go everywhere. You're going to get burnt. And it's going to happen over and over and over again. You absolutely have to have crystal clear boundaries when it comes to forgiveness. And I think this is where a lot of us get caught up, right? Because we have people in our lives who have hurt us. I was very much in that situation, with the story that I talk about in the book, with regards to my former husband and going through my divorce, and all of that. And I was very, very reluctant to forgive at first, because it felt like, well, if I forgive, I'm going to get hurt again. If I forgive, I am opening up the door to let that person back into my life. And that opens up all of these opportunities for pain and suffering down the road. And it's not it's not that by forgiving them we are letting them back in. It's by forgiving them we are choosing to release ourselves from the burden that we are carrying. When you think about people that you have grievances towards, when you think about the impact that that has on your body, the extra weight, and I don't just mean physical weight, although it can be, that can be one of the ways that, these grievances and these, that hurt, that anger, that hatred can manifest itself inside our body. It can be an additional weight. Sometimes the act of carrying this emotional baggage creates physical baggage that we carry on our bodies. Other times that emotional baggage, that emotional distress causes other discomfort, other disease in our body, in which we are separating from our purpose. We're separating from who we are. We are separating from the natural flow of who we are meant to be. Forgiveness is extremely natural. Forgiveness is our birthright. Forgiveness is our natural way of being. Our ego comes in, our fear-based mind comes in and leads us to believe that it's not. That leads us to believe that if I forgive, I'm going to get hurt again. But that isn't the case. But all of those beliefs, all of those limiting beliefs, those false beliefs that are caused by fear, that are caused by the ego, that cause us to carry all of this additional baggage and discomfort in our bodies will later manifest itself in other ways, and much more serious ways the longer we hold on to them. But going back to what I was talking about, forgiving, choosing to forgive someone doesn't mean that we are letting them back into our lives. It doesn't mean that you have to worry about getting them a gift for their birthday, or inviting them to your wedding, or seeing them at brunch next Sunday. Forgiving someone doesn't mean that we are opening the doors to let them back in. What it means is that I am choosing to no longer hold you accountable for your actions. I am choosing to no longer carry the burden that I am carrying in order to make sure that you are being punished, that you are being held accountable, that you have not forgotten what you did to me and how you hurt me. And I want you to think about that for a second. Think about the people that you have grievances towards, the people who you have struggled to forgive, and I want you to think about the weight that that has placed on you. I want you to think about the burden that you have placed on yourself to make sure that they never forget how they hurt you, that they never forget the pain they caused you, that they are being held accountable for their actions. And I want you to ask yourself this. With the way you were hurt, with the way that these people betrayed your trust, disrespected you, hurt you in whatever way it was, how fair does it feel for you to put this additional burden on yourself, to not only be carrying the pain of what they did to you, but now also have to carry the burden of trying to hold them accountable and making sure that they don't forget what they did to you or how they hurt you? Doesn't that feel heavy? I think about that and I feel the weight in my shoulders. I feel the weight in my chest. I feel how it constricts my breathing to carry that additional burden for someone else. And the truth is, it is not my responsibility, and it is not your responsibility. It is not your responsibility to make sure that someone does not forget that they hurt you. It is not your responsibility to make sure that they are being held accountable for their actions. And yes, there are larger conversations that we need to have around accountability, especially with everything that is happening in the world right now and all of the social injustice that we are seeing. And then, yes, in that situation, in that context, there is very much an accountability that needs to be held for these people. But in terms of our personal lives, in terms of our personal relationships, you do not need to hold yourself accountable to make sure that somebody else is paying for their mistakes. You are just placing an enormous burden on yourself that you do not need to be carrying. And ultimately, the person that it is hurting more than anyone else is you. The person that you are affecting through all of that is you. And I speak from experience. I speak from experience because I know when I was going through my journey, when I was going through my divorce and separating from my former husband, after so many countless instances of infidelity, so many indiscretions, so many betrayals of my trust, it was very hard to forgive, because I felt, well, if I'm not holding him accountable, he's clearly not holding himself accountable. He's clearly not atoning for what he's done and the hurt that he has caused. So I need to hold him accountable. I need to make sure that he never forgets how badly he hurt me. He never forgets how much he broke my trust. And I would use every single conversation, every single moment as an opportunity to remind him of what he had done. And it was exhausting. It was draining. It was draining my energy. It was draining my light. It was draining my life force, because in every single moment, I was carrying the pain of the past with me and reliving it over and over and over and over again, constantly dwelling and living in that pain, in that suffering, just so that I could remind him of what he had done. And throughout all of it, and you might find this with a lot of people who have, narcissistic tendencies. I don't want to go off the rails here and start calling people narcissistic, because I think we all have narcissistic tendencies, and they live on a spectrum. And some of us are more narcissistic than others, and that causes us to hurt a lot more people. But you'll find that with people who live on the further end of that spectrum, you can be reminding them of how they hurt you as much as you want. They don't really seem to care. It doesn't really seem to faze them all that much. And so then what do? You put on more, right? You pile on more, because, if this isn't working, clearly I need to up my game. I need to elevate the amount of pain that I am showing. I need to relive this even more. I need to bring it up even more, so that they can feel the weight of what they've done. But throughout all of that, the only person you're harming is yourself. The only person that you are affecting is yourself, because you are choosing to constantly relive these cycles of anguish, these cycles of suffering and pain, in order to remind someone else of what they've done. And the truth is, you'll never get inside their head. You'll never know what they're feeling, what kind of remorse they're feeling, if they're feeling any remorse at all. You'll never know what kind of anguish is going on within them, and you'll never understand fully someone else's motives for doing what they did, for how they betrayed you, for how they hurt you, for how they disrespected you. So in the end, the only person you're really hurting is yourself. The only person that you're really affecting throughout all of this, because the only person we really have the power to affect and control is ourselves. We can't control anybody else. We can't control other people's perception of situations or relationships. We can only control our own. And so in doing this, the only person that we harm is ourselves. And some of us do that deliberately. Some of us do that because we don't feel that we are worthy of love. We don't feel that we are worthy of happiness and joy. We feel that the pain that we were caused, the disrespect that occurred, the betrayal that occurred, we somehow deserved. And so it becomes very, very easy to constantly relive these cycles of living in our pain, dragging the past back into the present moment, because we feel that we deserve to suffer. We deserve to be in pain. We deserve to be hurting right now. And that's not the case. You don't deserve to be suffering. You don't deserve to be in pain. You don't deserve to have your trust betrayed. You don't deserve to be disrespected. No matter who you are, no matter what you have done, you do not deserve it. And you do not need to continue carrying this burden anymore. You can choose to let it go. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the process of actually letting it go. Because I know that a lot of us are resistant to forgiveness for the reasons that we spoke about, how we identify with it, how despite its discomfort, it is comfortable because it is known. And who are we without our pain, without our suffering? But one of the other reasons that so many of us have difficulty with forgiveness is we don't know how. So we hold on to it. We don't know how to release it. We don't know how to forgive someone. We don't know how to erect those boundaries. And by the way, I talk a lot about boundaries in the book and in the coming chapters. And we're going to talk about boundaries because believe you me, they're important. But when it comes to forgiveness, a lot of us weren't given the tools. How do I put this? When it comes to forgiveness, you go through grade school, you go through life, you go through, your upbringing, whatever it was, whatever faith it might have been in. We are taught that if we hurt someone, we need to make amends. We need to apologize. We need to atone for what we've done. But we aren't really taught how to forgive. Somebody comes up to us, apologizes to us, and you say, okay. You say thank you. You acknowledge it. But aside from that, what have we been taught about forgiveness? What have we been taught about that process, about what it actually looks like? And for a lot of us, it's nothing. We are taught that, well, somebody apologized, so that's it. It's over. Move on. It's done. Get over it. And sometimes the wounds go a lot deeper. Sometimes the wounds are deep, and sometimes there are multiple wounds. Sometimes there have been multiple betrayals and multiple acts of infidelity or hurt in whichever way they may have manifested themselves. Sometimes there are multiple, and we don't okay, sure, you've apologized, great, I acknowledge your apology, but that doesn't help me deal with all of the wounds. It doesn't help me deal with all of the pain, the fact that you've simply apologized. It doesn't help me actually forgive you, other than acknowledging your apology and accepting it, because I feel that is what would be the best for you, right? That is what's going to be the most beneficial and helpful for you, because it's rude, right? Somebody apologizes to you and you don't accept it. It's rude. Especially if you consider that they are, taking accountability for what they've done. And in some cases they don't. In some cases those apologies, if you hear the little one in the background, I apologize. He's full of energy today. But in some cases those apologies feel sincere. In other cases they don't. In some cases those apologies feel very superficial. And so, we go through the motions and we nod and we smile and we accept their apology. But just because we've accepted it doesn't mean we've forgiven anyone. It doesn't mean that inside we've done the work to release ourselves of this burden. We may have acknowledged somebody's apology, or somebody's atonement for what they've done, and we can still carry the burden of what they did to us for weeks and months and years and even decades. And think about that. Think about the grievances that you've been carrying and how long you've been carrying them. Because I'll tell you, in my former relationship, in my former marriage, I didn't carry those for weeks. I didn't carry them for months. I carried them for years. And holy moly, that was painful. And man, did I suffer. And at the end of the day, I was the root cause for my suffering, because I was choosing not to forgive. I was choosing not to let this person off the hook for what they had done to me. And I got to see my former husband go out into life and live joyously and freely, or at least what I could perceive as joyous and free. I don't know their internal struggle. I don't know what was going on inside. But he seemed to be completely free and completely happy and completely joyous. Meanwhile, here I am suffering in pain and constantly reliving these experiences because I want to make sure that he doesn't forget, when clearly it seems like not only has he forgotten, he's completely moved on and living the good life. And then how fair is that, right? How fair is that as, us, the people who have been hurt, who have been betrayed, who have been disrespected, to now be punished by being forced to relive that, over and over again, just to hold somebody else accountable. So how do we forgive? What are the tools? I consider there to be 3 steps to forgiveness. And those are what I'm going to talk to you about today. The first being willingness. Having the willingness to forgive. I am willing to see this person differently. I am willing to see this situation differently. I am willing to forgive. I am willing to let go. I am willing to stop carrying this burden. I am willing to stop reliving this pain and suffering over and over again. It always starts with willingness. And the willingness can feel confusing, because when I often talk to people about forgiveness, they say, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to forgive. I'm not ready to let go. And often it's not that you're not willing to let go. It's not that you're not willing to forgive. It's that you don't know how. You don't know how to release it, and you don't know what life can look like on the other side, because we've been carrying these burdens for so long that life without them for some people will seem freeing, and it'll seem joyful and peaceful and like absolute bliss. And for other people, it will feel crippling, because, oh my God, if I'm not holding on to this, I've been holding on to it for so long, in some cases decades. If I'm not holding on to this grievance, if I'm not holding on to this pain and suffering, who am I? What am I doing? What do I have to hold on to? What do I have to relate to? What do I have to protect myself with, right? Because if I'm a person in pain, if I'm a person who's suffering, it makes it easy for me to close up, right? It makes it easy for me to build walls around me in order to keep myself safe. If I forgive, and if I open the floodgates, if I open myself back up to people, to the world, to society, to life, then I run the risk of getting hurt again. So the willingness, step one, it's ground zero. You got to start with willingness. And if you're telling yourself, I don't know that I'm ready, I don't know that I'm ready to forgive this person, ask yourself, is it that I'm not ready, or is it that I don't know how? Is that I don't understand what life will look like on the other side of this? Because I'm telling you right now, relieving yourself of the responsibility of holding someone else accountable is going to be one of the most freeing things you will ever do. When you learn to forgive someone, when you learn to see the goodness in them, the innocence in them, it is life-changing. And you might be rolling your eyes at me right now thinking, the goodness, really? The innocence in this person? And I know, because I've been there. When I thought about, my former husband, and, the amount of pain and suffering he had caused, all of the infidelity and the indiscretions and all of the lies. And I was like, really? The goodness? The innocence? You really? But it was there. And the thing is, if you choose to subscribe to this method of thinking, depending on what your spiritual beliefs are, I choose to believe that we are all children of God. We are all children of the universe. And I don't mean, like I've spoken about in previous light talks, and I'll say it again, I don't mean, when I say God, I don't mean God in the Christian context. I don't mean it in the religious context. For me, my definition of God is very different, and I've spoken about that on a previous light talk. But choose whatever semantics work for you, whatever labels work for you. They're not important. If you choose to believe that we are all children of God, we are all children of the universe, then this person who has hurt you, this person who has caused you pain, they're also a child of God, right? They have that light within them. They have that innocence, that inherent goodness lies within them. Now, whether they choose to recognize that it's there or not, completely different story. Completely different story, and completely not your responsibility to fix either. So please don't go taking that on. If you're here, I know you take on more than you should. Not your responsibility to fix other people if they don't see the inherent goodness that is within them, the inherent innocence, that divine spark. If they don't see that it's there, don't worry. We work on you, okay? We work on forgiving. So if we choose to see the goodness in other people, if we choose to see their inherent goodness, their innocence, despite what they might have done, despite how they may have hurt you, it allows us to connect with them in a way that we otherwise can't. When you are holding on to resentment and anger and judgment, because judgment will ultimately come out of all of this, it disconnects you from each other. It disconnects us from each other, because we are no longer seeing that there is something within this person that also exists within me. Yogi Bhajan says the other person is you. What does that mean? It means that there is a goodness. If I see goodness in someone else, it's because it also lives within me. It's because that light, that love, that compassion that I'm seeing in that other person is a reflection of what is within me. There's a flip side to that. It also means that the darkness that I see in someone else, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal, the suffering, is also within me, maybe to a lesser extent. Maybe I've done a lot of shadow work and I've healed a lot of parts of myself. But all of those aspects that are being magnified in somebody else because of how they're choosing to live their life, because of how they're choosing to deal with their internal struggle and their internal demons and their ego and their fear-based mind, that still all exists within us, right? Those shadows, those fears, that ego still lives within us. We'll never be devoid of the ego. We'll never be devoid of fear. But when we choose to recognize these commonalities, these shared pieces of humanity, we get to connect, right? So when we choose to see the goodness in someone else, the innocence in someone else, despite how they may have hurt us, despite how they may have betrayed us or lied, or caused us suffering in any way, whether it was intentional or unintentional, when we choose to see that goodness, that divinity within them, it allows us to create a tether. It allows us to connect to their light. It allows us to send them love and to send them compassion. And I know that that can feel like a struggle. I know that that can feel like a struggle. If you're suffering right now from somebody who has hurt you, the idea of sending them love and compassion can feel very difficult. And it can feel like something you are not willing to do. But I ask that you open yourself up to it. Because if you can create that tether, if you can open yourself up to forgiving that person, because ultimately the forgiveness lies there, right? It lies in seeing their inherent goodness, recognizing that they are a human being who is suffering. And, you know, the idea that hurt people is very much true. And, you know, we've all been those people, right? We've all been that hurt person who ends up hurting someone else. Sometimes the act of forgiving someone, the act of opening ourselves up to the thought of forgiveness, to the act of forgiveness, of sending love and compassion, can be the redemption that somebody else needs. Choosing to see their inherent goodness, choosing to see their light, sometimes can open them up to seeing it within themselves. It can create that miracle moment, that shift in perception, that holy instant where they get to recognize themselves as being something more, capable of more. It opens them up to being able to truly practice atonement. And there's no guarantee that it goes that way, obviously. There's no guarantee that, you know, forgiving somebody, seeing the inherent goodness in them will make them change. But what it will do is it will free you. It will free you of that burden that you've been carrying. It will allow you to live more joyfully and more freely. And ultimately, that's what we're here to do, right? The more of us that can forgive, the more of us that can live open-hearted lives, without walls and barricades around us, the more of us that can step into our light, the more we get to tip the scale. That will shift consciousness, that will shift the energy of our society, and bring more people into that light. So step one is always starting with willingness. Step two is asking for guidance, asking for help. That can look like a bunch of different things, depending on your spiritual beliefs, or your religious beliefs, or whatever they may be, whatever definition of a higher power that you have. But it's getting still, and it's in those moments being able to say, God, universe, angels, spirit, whatever works for you. I know that I am struggling to forgive this person. I know that I am struggling to see this situation differently, to see this relationship differently. But I am willing to forgive. I just don't know how. Show me the way. Guide me. Show me the next right step. Ask for guidance. Ask for help. And we'll do that through prayer. We'll walk through a prayer that I have in the book, and a meditation that I have in the book, throughout this session. But whenever you're struggling, ask for help. We've spent so much time over the past few weeks working on our understanding of a higher power, curating what our spiritual practice looks like. Now's the time to pull out the big guns. Now is the time to lean into that spirituality, to lean into that presence of a higher power, and ask for help. And I'll walk you guys through it. But asking for guidance when we don't know how to forgive, it's step 2. And it allows us to move the needle just a little bit further, to not only have the willingness, but now to be taking action, and asking for that help. And then step 3, when it comes to forgiveness. So step 1 is willingness, being willing to forgive. Step 2 is asking for help or guidance. Step 3 is taking your hands off the wheel. Taking your hands off the wheel and letting yourself be guided, letting yourself be led to the next right action, to the next step that will allow you to forgive, that will allow you to release this burden, that will allow you to see this person differently. Taking your hands off the wheel, not trying to control, not trying to steer it, not trying to force this in any way, trying to force an encounter or force an apology, but just letting yourself be guided. And a lot of us struggle here, and I know that I personally struggled here, because I would take my hands off the wheel and then I would grab it again, right? Because that fear would creep in of like, oh no, but if I let go of my grievance, if I let go of my resistance, then what do I have, right? I'm losing something. And the thought of losing something without knowing what you're gaining, without what is coming in to fill that void, the void that is being created by, releasing that anger and that hatred and that hurt and that suffering, can feel scary. So a lot of us, we go through step 1, we have the willingness. We go through step 2, we ask for guidance, we ask for help, we ask for support, we ask to be shown the way. And then step 3 comes, take your hands off the wheel, and we do it, and then it lasts a split second, and then we grab back on, because nope, I need to hold that person accountable. I'm not ready to release that burden. I am not ready to stop holding them accountable or making them feel responsible for the way they hurt me, or the way they betrayed my trust, or the suffering that they may have caused. But every time we take it back, every time we put our hands back on the wheel, we are just increasing the burden that we place on ourselves. We are just taking all of that past and just inching it forward, into the present moment. And we're just creating more walls around ourselves. We're just creating more barriers that we will have to break through. We think that these walls that we build around ourselves, we think they keep us safe. They do, in a sense. They keep us safe from, if you close yourself off from the world, yes, you will keep yourself safe from other people hurting you. But they also imprison you. It is hard to grow and to develop and to evolve and to self-actualize when you're trying to live within this constrained space that you have created for yourself, within this small container, that you have now imprisoned yourself in. So the more we practice forgiveness, the more we take our hands off the wheel, the more we choose to stop living in the past or bringing the past into the present moment, the more we start to take off those bricks and break down the walls that we have placed around ourselves. The more we get to live more openly, more freely. The more we get to give love and compassion more freely and more abundantly, because it is abundant. We never run out of love. We never run out of compassion. We never run out of forgiveness either. There is no limit to the amount of forgiveness that we can bestow upon other people, and that we can bestow upon ourselves too, right? I mean, we've spent the majority of this talk talking about forgiving others. There's also much to be said about forgiving ourselves, right? Everything that we apply in terms of forgiving others, we need to apply towards ourselves too. Around forgiving, the limiting beliefs that we've held towards ourselves, around the fears that we have chosen to believe, the fearful thoughts, the diminishing thoughts that we have chosen to believe as truth about ourselves, about our worth, about our value, about what we deserve in life. We get to apply all of this to ourselves as well, and how we free ourselves from that, how we forgive ourselves from all of the harmful and hateful and belittling and diminishing thoughts and beliefs that we have held about ourselves. So we'll talk about forgiveness. I want to walk you through the meditation that I share in the book. Before that, I want to talk about another practice that I have and that I've used a lot over the years, and that is the practice of cord cutting. It can be very beneficial if you're struggling to forgive someone. When forgiveness occurs, throughout time and throughout space, often it is easier to forgive someone when there is physical distanciation between us, right? When there is a physical space of separation that lies between us, it is easier to practice forgiveness. It is sometimes harder to practice forgiveness with someone who is constantly in your face, right? So I share about it in the book. When I was struggling to forgive my former husband for the infidelity and the indiscretions, all of the lies, all of the pain, we weren't separated yet. I mean, we were emotionally separated. We had made the decision to dissolve our wedding vows. We had made the decision to part ways, but we weren't physically separated yet. We were living and sleeping in separate bedrooms, but we were still living in the same household. We were waiting for our property to sell so that we could, take the equity that we had inside our property and each one of us split it, reinvest, start our new lives, go down our own paths. But in the meantime, here I was struggling or trying to forgive someone who I was still sharing the same living space with. We still lived in the same house. We still ate, at the same dining room table. We still cooked in the same kitchen. At the time, there was only one of us that has a driver's license, and that was me. So we had one family car with one driver's license. We both, worked in the next town over. So we had to commute together. I had to drive him to work and pick him up after work. And then, endure those car rides home, which were, because of traffic, were often like an hour long each way. So it was a struggle to forgive someone who was constantly occupying the same physical space as me, because there was no distanciation that was happening yet. So cord cutting became a tool and a practice that was extremely beneficial to me. And I talk about the process in the book. It's actually very, very simple, so I'll walk you through it really quickly. And cord cutting is important not only, by the way, for people who have hurt us or betrayed us or caused us pain in any way. It's also important for family members and people that we love and people that we cherish, because everybody that we encounter, everybody that we choose to spend time with, that whether they're living in our physical environment or not, whether it be colleagues from work or friends and family members that live in the next town over that we see on weekends or a couple times a month, all of these people that we interact with, we connect, we create these energetic cords to them and them to us. So, imagine yourself like with these, strings of spaghetti that stretch out from you and connect you to all of these different people. Often we find ourselves feeling tired or depleted, or we find ourselves taking on anxiety and sadness and fear and all of these emotions that they aren't ours. But sometimes it's just from the amount of cords that we have, connecting us to other people and feeling what they're feeling, and the energy that is being drained from us. So the practice of cord cutting is important, and it's something you can do on a regular basis. Whether it's in a context of forgiveness or not, it's just a great energetic cleansing hygiene type practice to have, that will allow you to cut those cords, to separate yourselves from people who are perhaps drawing on your energy a little bit too frequently, or that are causing you to feel things that aren't part of your experience. They aren't part of something that you're living, and yet you're feeling all of this anxiety and all of this heaviness and this weight. So it's really simple. You sit in meditation, whatever your spiritual meditation practice may be, and visualize all of these cords that are stretching out from you like a spider web, and connecting you to all of these different people. And in some cases, you'll be able to very clearly visualize the people that these cords are connected to. In other cases, you don't. They're further away. They're just going out into the distance. You can't see who they're connected to, and that's okay. But in your meditation, as you are visualizing all of these cords extending out from you, invite Archangel Michael into your meditation. And again, it doesn't matter what your religious or spiritual beliefs are. This isn't a religious conversation. This isn't a Christian conversation by any means. But invite Archangel Michael into your meditation. And Archangel Michael is often depicted and visualized as having a very large sword. Sometimes we visualize it as having this blue light emanating from it. Invite Archangel Michael into your meditation and ask him to cut these cords, to cut the cords that surround you and that are connecting you to others, and ask that this energy be safely returned to the earth so that it can be restored and transformed. And while you're in your meditation, just visualize that sword going around you and cutting all of these cords. And as they are cut, visualize them dissolving and falling to the ground and being absorbed into the earth, and that energy being recycled and transformed and transmuted. And that's it. It's really simple. And you can do it daily, you can do it weekly, you can do it monthly, however often you feel necessary. You can do it in meditation, you can do it while you're standing in the shower. However you feel guided to use it as much and as frequently as you would like. And like I said, don't limit it to only people who have hurt you or betrayed you or caused you harm or pain in any way. Make sure that it is all inclusive, even to the people that you love, even to your mother and your father and your sister and your brother and your children, even your children, because all of these cords that are sucking our energy, they can be very depleting if you don't have a good energetic hygiene, if you don't know how to constantly be refilling yourself up and how to nourish your own energy and your own spirit. It can be extremely depleting to have all of these cords attaching to you. And these cords will keep recreating themselves over time. Every time we see someone again and we encounter someone again, that cord recreates itself. So I don't want you to have this fear that, my best friend, I'm going to cut the cord and then I'll never have that attachment to them again. No, every time you see that person, that cord recreates itself. Every time you are in their presence, every time you talk to them, every time you think of them, every time you send them loving thoughts and loving energy, you are recreating those cords. So by all means, make it a practice to cleanse that energetic field around you by cutting those cords. It's incredibly important. All right. I want to finish with the forgiveness meditation, and I won't go through the full steps of it. I won't go through the full meditation because we've spoken so much today, and the meditation is in the book. There is also a meditation album that you can get on the website if you go to davidD.ca/book. There will also be information there about how to get the meditation album itself, which basically has digital versions of all of the meditations in the book with beautiful audio backdrops to them. And I guide you through all of the meditations. It's a really beautiful experience. I know I created them, so I have they have a soft spot for me. But I created all of these practices and all of these meditations throughout moments in my life that were very hard and very dark. And I created these tools because I so desperately needed them. So when I was going back and writing the book, when I realized that I had the opportunity to create digital versions, all of these, to support you on your journey in a completely different way, it just made me so happy to be able to share this with you, right? To share these tools that I had created. So it's there if you want the digital version. But I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. So while you're in meditation, take those moments to ground yourself, to center yourself, to slow your breathing, to breathe deeply in from your diaphragm. And your breathing should always feel comfortable and effortless. It should never feel exaggerated or extenuated. It should never be tiring. So just keep that in mind, because I know we often, we get the instruction through meditation to breathe deeply. And a lot of us exaggerate that, especially if you're not familiar with deep breathing. If you're not familiar with deep breathing and you're breathing very shallowly into your diaphragm, into your chest instead of your diaphragm, make that breathing practice a normal practice for you, so that you can work on breathing into your diaphragm and really taking in the full amount of oxygen into your lungs. And if you've done any type of sports or yoga or meditation training, you'll know what this feels like. You'll have experienced this before. But just make sure that your breathing feels effortless and it feels comfortable, so that it doesn't become a distraction to what you're actually trying to do in your meditation. So in your meditation, as you're sitting there, I want you to think of the person that you are struggling to forgive, the person that you are holding these grievances towards. And I want you to say a prayer for them. I want you to say a blessing. Ask that they be blessed. Ask that they be loved. Ask that they be filled with joy and with happiness. I want you to ask for them everything that you would ask for yourself. The joy, the happiness, the peace, the love, the compassion, all of it. Everything that you would pray for yourself, I want you to ask for this person. And what I want to make sure that you don't do, because we get caught up in this and we go down the rabbit hole of our egos, where we start to say, I pray that this person sees the light. I pray that this person recognizes their wrongs or the error of their ways. I pray that this person be set on the right path. No, don't do it. Just pray for their love. Pray for their compassion. Pray for their joy. Pray for their bliss. Pray for their peace. Don't give into your ego. Don't go down the rabbit hole of asking that they be shown the light, that they be put on the right path. Because in that moment, what you're doing is you're going into your judgment. You're going into your ego, into your fear-based mind. Because you are judging that they are not on the right path, right? For them to be shown the light, for them to be shown the right path, it means that you believe in your mind, in your heart, in your head, wherever it's coming from, that they are not on the right path. And we don't know. We don't know what somebody's path is in this life. We don't know what their purpose is here in their life. We don't know what their dharmic contract is. We don't know what their soul contract is, of how they are meant to go through this life and learn and heal and evolve and actualize or self-actualize. Perhaps this is exactly where they're meant to be. Perhaps, the struggle that they're going through is they're on the right path. Perhaps this is the way to their self-actualization, to their healing, to their evolution. So don't fall into the pattern of thinking that you know better for this person, or that you know that they are not on the right path, or that you know what is best for them. Because when we do that, we go into our ego. We go into our fear-based mind. And there is no forgiveness that can occur there. When we are in our judgment, we cannot forgive. Because when we are in our judgment, we are disconnecting ourselves from each other. We are disconnecting from the inherent goodness and innocence that connects us, the parts of our humanity that intertwine us. When we go into our judgment of other people, we disconnect all of that. We disconnect us from them, and we disconnect us from ourselves. We disconnect ourselves from our true purpose. We disconnect ourselves from our natural flow, our natural energy. We disconnect ourselves from our connection to our higher power, whatever that may be or may look like for you. So all I want you to pray for is their blessings. Pray for their love. Pray for their joy. Pray for their happiness. Pray for their bliss. Pray for all of those things that you would pray for yourself. And then I want you to turn over this person, turn over this relationship, this situation to your higher power. And depending on what you believe, that might look like different things. For me, it has often been, I would sit in meditation, and after I would pray for this person and bless this person, I would say, Dear God, I am placing this person and my relationship with them in your hands. I ask that this relationship be transformed and transmuted. I ask that I be shown the next right steps to forgive this person and to ease myself from this burden that I am carrying. Amen. And that is it. That is the prayer. It is as simple as that. I don't want you to get caught up in the words. I want you to focus on the intention. The intention is much, much, much more powerful than the semantics, than the words that you choose to use. And whether that be God or the universe or Holy Spirit or guardian angels, or the spirit of a loved one that is no longer with us, it's fine. Don't get caught up in the semantics. Just get into the practice of handing that relationship over to someone else, to a higher power, and asking that you be guided and supported on your journey towards forgiving them. And then I want you to, if you can, if it feels comfortable enough, to visualize that person before you, and visualize a beam of golden white light streaming from the center of your chest, from your heart chakra, into their heart. And I want you to keep fueling that energy into them. This is the energy of love and compassion. It comes, you can see it coming up from the earth. You can see it coming down from the sky. Wherever you choose to connect to it from is absolutely fine. But I want you to feel this energy being delivered to this person, to see it beaming out into them. And as this energy hits their chest, I want you to visualize it growing larger and larger and larger until the person is completely immersed in light, and all you can see is their silhouette through the light because they are completely engulfed in it. I want you to fill them up with light, to fill them up with love, to fill them up with compassion, because in this moment, what you're doing when you are connecting to their heart, you are connecting to their divinity. You are connecting to their inherent goodness. You are connecting to their innocence, and you are magnifying it, and you are sending them love. You are sending them compassion, and through this act, you will forgive that person. And some days it might feel very uncomfortable depending on the situation. You know, if there was a lot of betrayal, if there was a lot of pain or a lot of toxicity or abuse, it can feel very uncomfortable. And if that's the case, if it feels uncomfortable to hold them so close in your meditation, you don't need to go there yet. Just use their name, just use the thought of them, and just work on handing that relationship over to your higher power and asking for forgiveness, asking to be guided, asking to be held in this journey. And then when you're ready, just bring yourself back to your body. It's that simple. You know, there's not that many steps to this, so it's 3 steps through the meditation. Pray for them, bless them. 2, hand it over to a higher power. Ask that this relationship be transformed or transmuted. And then 3, send them love, whichever way feels comfortable. If that feels comfortable to send love from your heart directly to theirs, go for it. If it's just the thought of sending them love, that's fine too. If you can't visualize them, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't stress over it. There's no perfect way to do this. And you will find that the more you do it, the more you sit in meditation and you work on forgiving people, the more that this process will evolve and change for you. And that is okay. That is okay that it starts to take on your specific DNA and your specific fingerprint. It will become a very, very personal experience, and that's totally fine. But I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to practice forgiving someone for the next 30 days in your meditation. And this, by the way, doesn't take long. It takes a few minutes. You know, I sit in meditation I try to sit in meditation every morning. It doesn't always happen because I'm human, just like you guys. But, you know, I sit in meditation for 10, 15 minutes at a time, sometimes longer. And there's always an element in there of forgiving people, of going through my relationships, looking for where I have grievances, where I have resentments that I have not released, and sending love to those people and forgiving those people. And I make that part of my meditation practice daily. It only takes a couple of minutes. So I want to challenge you for the next 30 days, make it a daily practice. And you can do it in a whole big guided meditation. You can use the meditation that's in the book. You can download the meditation album and go through the digital guided meditation. Or it can just be a moment that you take, you know, sitting in your comfiest chair or lying in bed at night, or even sitting at your desk at work while you're working on your lunch hour, just taking a minute to close your eyes and forgive this person. and practice blessing them and praying for them. But I want you to take a couple minutes a day for the next 30 days and forgive this person. Make it your daily practice. And I promise you, I know with absolute certainty, because I've done it so many times and I've seen so many other people do it, that at the end of 30 days, you will see the transformation. You will see yourself transformed. You will see your relationship with this person will have transformed. And that can look like different things. It can look like the way they interact with you has changed. The hurtful or spiteful things that they were doing, they are no longer doing. Or you'll notice that your relationship to this person has changed in a way that while their actions may have not changed, their words may have not changed, they no longer hurt you anymore. They no longer cause you pain. That person is no longer able to come and touch you and affect you the way that they were. So I want to challenge you to try that. I want to challenge you to live that practice of forgiveness over the next 30 days. And take notes, after your meditations, take a journal, write for a couple seconds, just write how you're feeling. If you're feeling relieved, if you're feeling restored, if you're feeling uplifted, if you're feeling like a weight or a burden has been lifted from you. Because I promise you that the more you do it, the more you will feel it. And the more you will recognize the power of forgiveness. There is a reason why it is a common underlying thread in all religions and all spiritual practices. It is because forgiveness is our path to evolution, to self-actualization, to healing, to becoming the best versions of ourselves. So I want to challenge you to try that. And I'll leave you with that. I'll leave you with that meditation, and I'll leave you again with the Ho'oponopono prayer. Again, I hope I pronounced that correctly. But again, it's those same 4 lines that you just repeat to yourself over and over again. We started with it. We'll end with it today. We'll take a deep breath in through our nose, exhaling through our nose, and we'll say it 4 times. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Dedicate it to yourself, dedicate it to another person. Forgive yourself. You are doing the best you can with what you have, with what you have been given, with what you are going through. Please, please, please forgive yourself. We carry so much weight, and we burden ourselves so much with all of the things we could have done better, all the ways we could have reacted better to situations, and to, the different choices we could have made in relationships or situations. But we're all doing the best we can with what we have and the tools we have at our disposal and what we're living through and the fears and the anxieties and everything that is going on within us. So please just take a moment, forgive yourself, because you're doing the absolute best you can. And I believe in you and I love you. And I pray that this practice of forgiveness sustains you and it uplifts you and it guides you and it releases you and it sets you free. So with that, happy Sunday, or whatever day it is when you're watching this or wherever you are in the world. Just thank you so much for spending the past hour with me. I have really missed spending this time with you guys and being here on a weekly basis. And I look forward to our next Light Talk sessions over the coming weeks. But with that, I send you so much love and so much gratitude for being here with me. Love you.